Hello, I'm Keith with the Trombone Shop at Schmidt Music, back with another instrument review for you. And today I have a really unique instrument, or I should say variation of a unique instrument that we've been literally waiting for a couple of years on, specifically a Greenhoe GB4 with cut bell. We've talked a lot about the cut bell phenomena, and we certainly don't need to rehash that. But, of course, as we have all of these different makers doing their own takes on this innovation, I am always really interested to experience it. So like I said, we've literally had this instrument on order for a couple of years, but when we got it in, I knew I needed to share the experience. So I'm going to take a play on this. Of course, talk about the experience afterwards. I'm going to be playing all of this today on my trusty Bach 5G. So we know at this point, Greenhoe trombones have really become a mainstay, at least a well-known part of the trombone community. Going back through Gary Greenhoe's work from the early 1990s through the development of his own instruments throughout the 2000s, and then eventually the purchase of Greenhoe by Schilke Musical Products and kind of reviving these instruments and really maintaining the extremely high levels of hand craftsmanship and workmanship behind all of these instruments. We've talked at length about all of this, and we certainly don't need to rehash all of that. Needless to say, they continue to really exemplify the best in instrument building. On the other hand, we have the ongoing evolution and really the acceptance of the cut bell setup here. So likewise, we don't need to rehash everything with the cut bells. Specifically, I've talked at length in a number of other videos about this, but of course, we are seeing, frankly, most every manufacturer, most all major manufacturers, and frankly, most all of the custom manufacturers have really, gotten on board with the idea of not only the portability, everything that brings to the table, but the playing attributes of the instrument with the cut bell and how to work with that. And there's different approaches with all of that. So when Greenhoe introduced their version of their cut bells, I was, of course, really excited to be able to experience it and to experience it on one of my favorite iterations of their instruments, the GB4 here. So, of course, Greenhoe took a lot of inspiration, originally directly from Bach and Kahn, modifying those components to build those instruments and eventually building his own takes on them. In this case, we have the GB4, the Bach style here, Bach 42, and of course they have the GC4 pattern after the 88H. So a few basics about the GB4 here. Has an 8.5-inch yellow brass bell, originally of course one-piece bell in traditional Bach design, and then cut after the fact here. We have a reverse tuning slide here, single radius. Of course, we have the famous Greenhoe valve. The valve, one of the innovations that really put Greenhoe instruments on the map here. We have a Bach-style hand slide, so it's a 547 bore wide crook on the hand slide here, yellow brass outer tubes with nickel silver crook, of course interchangeable lead pipes, and then, like I mentioned, it has all of the Greenhoe craftsmanship and attention to detail, all of the beautiful ferrules and braces, everything that really brings these instruments into kind of the level between just equipment and art in a lot of ways, right? So in general, I've said with the Greenhoes, I've found them to be very easy playing instruments, extremely efficient. One of the things that always struck me is that every single Greenhoe large bore I have played always has just that beautiful weight to the response. I've said a lot. I think a really great classical sound, especially if we're thinking about an orchestral-esque kind of sound, a really great tenor trombone sound is a little bit like dropping a sandbag. Ooh. Where it has a weight to the response. It doesn't have a snap to it, but there's not even a hesitancy. There's just this pause, and then when the sound hits, it's just beautiful and gorgeous and stable and rock solid. The Greenhoes have always done that really, really well. So again, I was curious to see what the cut bell was going to bring to the table, and frankly, it did a lot of what I expected it was going to do. So the Greenhoe bells in general are very lightweight, and this is one of their LT bells, their lightweight bell, which we know a lot of players really like how that lighter weight bell matches with the added mass of the cut bell collar. So what I really experienced with this is, well, first off, I found it was very, very determinant on what was happening with the lead pipe. So they come with two different lead pipes, the one lead pipe, which is the longer of the two, and the two lead pipe, which I have in, the shorter of the two. And those make a huge difference in the blow, the stability, the sound quality, the articulation, all of these different attributes. And it certainly took some experimenting on my part to find which of the two I really preferred. At first, I liked the longer lead pipe, but then I found that the sound was really, really tight. It was really resistant to a point. I had a very difficult time getting any kind of real clarity and stability to the articulation, for example. When I went to the more open of the lead pipe, everything broadened out quite a bit. And one of the first things that struck me, again, even this morning when I went to do this video, is how much sound it's putting outwards. It is one of those instruments where I do notice that I'm not getting as much feedback as a player. Different players have different preferences. I'm not necessarily somebody who feels like they need to have a ton of feedback, but when I have something like this where it's very clear that it is putting sound outward toward the audience, in a very, very directional way versus sending, whatever percentage back to me as a player, it really did stand out to me. Now, again, for me, that's not necessarily a huge deal, although I did find even here, there were certain times where I had to be listening a little bit differently to hear, am I getting the articulation where I want? Frankly, even where are things slotted? Just because the sound, it feels like it's just so much further out. But not in a bad way, because I felt like it was really, really efficient in that, to the point where I found myself really having to not work so hard. I'm traditionally a Bach player. I have my Bach 42 is my standard large bore tenor trombone setup. But with this, I really found that even from there, I had to slow down my airflow, broaden, warm it up a little bit more, because if I started focusing it in at all of a sudden, just the response and the control just really, really started to really compress down, and I had a hard time controlling it and getting the evenness. So again, for me, it would be a little bit of a transition with it. But again, I like that it's really efficient, because if you just blow and let the instrument play, it happens. It has, again, this beautiful, rich, sonorous sound, and it's just, again, how much sound it is putting out, and the complexity, the weight of the sound. We know one of the things I feel that the cut bell really adds is it adds a complexity. It adds to the overtone distribution. And again, I think this really, really does that in a really, really wonderful way. And again, for me, it's something where I feel like it's not quite as nimble as I would like to have it, but I'm not the biggest gear player out there, right? I'm not playing on these big axial flow setups, etc. I have something I'm a little bit more balanced in terms of the airflow concept. And so for the player, I think, who is looking for something, if they're used to an axial flow kind of setup, but maybe you want to have something that's just a little bit more efficient, or if you're looking for something that you're going to be able to really lay into in large ensemble settings, whether it is your wind ensemble, your orchestral settings, if you're a solo player who's playing in a lot of larger venues, etc. Again, just the ease of play, the ease of the volume creation with this instrument, I think could be really, really advantageous. And of course, as always, you get just the impeccable Greenhoe quality and consistency of build and everything else that they have brought and continue to bring to the table. So I hope you enjoyed my review of the GB4-1Y with the cut bell. If you have any thoughts about this instrument, maybe you've gotten to try this exact model or one of the other Greenhoe instruments, please, would love to have your feedback. Think about leaving a comment in our comment section here. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to our channel, hitting that notification button so that way you know when we have more videos coming out. Of course, you can hit the like button on this video here, and you can find the Trombone Shop on Facebook and Instagram. As always, thanks for watching.